back to the channel. I've missed you. Let's get into it. This is my being openly bisexual in the military video. So I'm gonna start this off with a little bit of story time, then we're gonna dive deep into your guys' questions. I printed out like a whole bunch of them because I didn't want to transcribe them from my phone, so I just printed them out. So I will be answering all of them right here. I joined immediately after high school. Like literally before I even went to prom, I signed my contract to serve my country for 6 years, right? And I was still like pretty well into the closet, you know, just like Christian upbringing, a whole bunch of internal stuff. Definitely not out at this point. As I ship off to boot camp, turn 18 in basic training. We don't call it boot camp in the Navy. I get my first station. I'm in South Carolina, obviously super conservative. I'm just like going through school and figuring stuff out, still like getting used to the Navy, you know, building friendships, still in the closet, very much so. It wasn't until like a couple years later when I finally started thinking of myself in that way. We started processing like what is going on in here, what's going on down there, you know, like what's this whole thing? Because I know that I'm attracted to men, but let's actually try and see what's going on there. So at the same time, I wanted to explore and see what was really happening with me, try and pursue this whole other half of me that I've been basically keeping under wraps this entire time. I was always just held back. I was held back because of like what would my peers think, what would all these guys that I work every single day in, day out, you know, through the grind with it, like what would they think of me if they knew that I was attracted to men as well as women, you know, like what kind of issues would that bring up? So I was just like really scared of my relationship with my friends changing, you know? Because in the military, you're super close. Like you guys shower in the same area, you guys change day in, day out together, you know? It's a very interconnected lives. So I was just worried about like how they would take everything, you know? So it wasn't until I got to upstate New York where I was doing like the last little bit of my training, and I met this officer, right? And he was openly gay. And I saw the way that he carried himself, how he interacted with all of his peers. More so, I saw the way that he interacted with his peers, like, in the locker room, you know? Because that was, like, a major thing for me. I love poking fun, I love joking, I love just shooting the shit and shitting the shit with the guys, you know? Just, like, having fun and, like, ripping on each other. And you know, that's like one thing about the military that I really did love and that I do miss is that like you have to have kind of like tough skin, but it's definitely like a brotherhood, you know, or a sisterhood or an intermingling hood for, you know, intermixed divisions and stuff. I was scared of losing that kind of like locker room banter where you guys just like make fun of each other and, you know, it builds that interconnectedness. I didn't want to lose that, you know, by having these guys like be insecure or just be awkward around me. Like I really didn't want that. But anyways, I saw this officer and the way that he interacted with all the other peers in the locker room, it was still like nothing was an issue, you know? He was just openly gay, interacting, still keeping the same locker room banter, telling jokes, you know? He would rip on people and then they would rip on him back, and it was perfect. It was exactly how I wanted it to be, you know, with myself instead. That just inspired me a whole bunch to see that like I can be open, I can be who I am in the military and still like not lose the interconnectedness and not lose that brotherhood and that community that the military is so famous for, you know? But at this point, I haven't really experimented with men. We had our first deployment around South America, which was awesome. I got to see Peru, Chile. I turned 21 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It was absolutely amazing. But we got back to the United States and we had this awful schedule because we were the only operating carrier on the East Coast at the time. So we were responsible for every single jet drill that needed to happen, every single special program that needed to happen. It was just all on our ship. So we had like the worst schedule. It was 1 month coming in, 1 month leaving, 2 weeks out to sea, 2 weeks coming in. It was just like ridiculous. You couldn't plan anything, you couldn't hang out, you couldn't do anything, right? So at this time I was single, but I was dating just girls at this time, and I would go on a date, and it would be cool, like, we'd vibe, you know, hit it off, make out, you know, whatever, and then, unfortunately, I would go on deployment for, like, 2 weeks, and I would come back, and they just thought that, like, I completely ghosted them, like, I didn't care at all. I would, like, hit them up, like, hey, I'm back from deployment, like, literally, they would just leave me on red. That kept on happening over and over and over and over and over again, and it was just ridiculous. After like several months of that, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm bisexual. I know this. I know I'm like kind of into dudes. So here, I'm gonna start trying it. So I like downloaded Grindr, which I would not recommend, but I did. I downloaded Grindr and I started like meeting guys and like actually like hooking up and stuff. Maybe like 3-4 dudes into it, I was like, okay, well, I'm obviously into dudes, so I'm gonna be open. I'm gonna just start dating guys. I didn't want to have like a coming out, but I just wanted it to be very normal, you know, just the way that I talk about girls, I'll just talk about guys. Fair enough, right? And to that point, everyone assumed I was straight, because I always talked about like girls and going out with girls and stuff. So it just like completely caught them off guard. But it was very short-lived. One of my closest friends at the time, he like came up and he's like, so are you gay? And I'm like, no, I still like girls. I do still like girls. And then after that, I was like pretty smooth sailing. I didn't really like have to come out, you know, at that point. The military is like super small, so if one person knows something about you in the military, it's gonna spread around. By the time it was lunch, half the ship knew. So I didn't really have to tell too many people like that. You know, it's old news at this point. I'm just being open. I'm being myself. Everything's cool. I didn't lose that locker room banter. I didn't lose my friends. No one, well, not too many people, like, acted weird around me or said, like, questionable stuff, which is pretty impressive considering that a decent amount of the people in the military are from extremely conservative, kind of rural areas. So I was really happy. It even got to the point where one of my chiefs, like my superiors, he was from West Virginia. He voted for Trump. Like, that's like that level where this guy's at. And I remember I was in the room right next to him, and he was like, hey, Pump, you're like half gay, right? And I was like, wow, this is progress. That was actually like one of my like proudest moments while being like open in the military, is the fact that like this guy from like a definite red state voted for Trump. You know, I could get him to at least acknowledge what bisexuality is and understand it, you know, whether it be pretty rudimentary context. Now I'm going to answer your guys' questions. How many straight men touched you sexually out of sheer boredom? A lot. Okay, so if you're around a whole bunch of dudes, you'll probably figure out that like it gets like pretty gay, right? Like they'll like touch each other and like, you know, like stick fingers up each other's ass, or like walk around naked, or do like a lot of just generally gay shit. Which was a reason why like I was scared, you know, I didn't want anyone to be weird about me actually being in the men. Yeah, no, I mean that didn't stop. It still continued no matter what. Like it's just literally the culture and the environment. And it builds community for sure. Okay. Did you feel any pressure to come out as bi or self-identify while in the military? No, I didn't really feel any pressure to, and once I did, it was actually the opposite, right? So a lot of pressure got relieved, because I could just make as many jokes as I want and feel free, you know. Do you feel like it's a phase sometimes? Yeah, like literally all the time. If I wasn't continually like bouncing forth, like, oh man, sometimes I'll get out of a relationship with a guy and be like, man, maybe I'm actually just straight. And like sometimes I'll get out of a relationship with a girl and maybe like I'm just gay, you know, who knows? But it's the fact that I've been continuously being able to go from one to the other, back to one, back to the other, you know, for years now, that I know for a fact that I'm bisexual. Did you crush on any guys while you were there? Yeah, I mean, obviously there's like people that you find attractive, but I'm pretty good about just turning off the whole like attraction thing, especially if they're straight. Here's a little piece of advice for all my bisexuals out there, or just gay guys. Don't fall for a straight guy. Just don't. It's completely pointless, worthless. Did you ever hook up with straight men? If I hooked up with them, they probably aren't straight. But the answer to your question is yes. Did you ever meet other bi/gay men in the military? If so, how many? Not a lot, obviously, but the ones that you do find, you probably be really good friends with half of them. I made really great friends with two gay guys that were also in the military, in the same field and same job that I was, and it was probably the best thing I could have done. It's just great having people around you that are going through a similar experience, and it was just like really fun. You know, we could just be ourselves around each other and still around our peers. My friend and I would like change in the locker rooms in the morning, and it was just like the funnest time because we would bounce off each other, talk about bands, or talk about going out to the gay clubs this weekend, or coming back from like a gay experience, like right next to all these straight guys. And it was just like, it was cool. You know, we weren't afraid to be who we were, and we weren't afraid to have normal conversations that everyone else were having as well, you know. So it's awesome. I definitely got to meet a couple really amazing LGBT people while I was in. Tell us about your most exciting hookup on the ship. Okay. This is a fun one. So I was getting a haircut, and this dude was cutting my hair, right? But I kept on noticing that he would like put his junk on like my arm while he was like shaving my head. And I'm like, what's going on? So anyways, I wouldn't like move my arm to like, you know, like, and he kept on doing it. And because I didn't move my arm, he kind of got that sense from me. Because the ship is like huge. Like carriers are huge. They have like 5,000 people living on them. So every kind of like compartment that people sleep in, it has a phone number attached to it. So he gave me his compartment's phone number so I can find him later. I hit him up, and you know, he's confirming that he's bi too. Actually, he's DL when it comes to the ship. He doesn't really like too many people knowing about him on the ship. And you know, he was into it. We were out to sea. So anyways, he sends me the information to come to the barber shop after hours, after they're closed. And he like lets me in, and you know, we like hook up out to sea, and it was like super hot. It was just like ridiculously hot. This whole like situation is just like so, you know, contrary to like belief. If you're in the military, or if you're in the police force, or anything kind of organization where you're worried about losing the brotherhood, you're worried about losing that community and that family by being who you are, just do it. Just come out. Just be exactly who you are. Be comfortable with yourself, and be open. I would highly encourage it. It's just like huge weight off your shoulder, and you'll feel better knowing that people love you because they see all of you. You know, you might inspire others to reach their own journey, or to come out, or you know, might get some hot hookups out of it. You know, so you shouldn't live in the shadows. Just be open, be who you are. I will now leave you guys with some cute photos of me and my mom, / just me while I was in, and see you guys next week. Please make sure you subscribe, hit the alarm. You know, whenever I drop a new video, you will be the first to know. No, thank you guys, I really do appreciate it, and I will see you next week. Bye.